The story of the Magi, wise men, kings, coming to visit Jesus with their gifts is it's one of those stories that fills our imagination and the Christmas season. Even though that this is the Epiphany Sunday, in Christian circles, it's a whole nother celebration. It's a whole nother feast. If you show me a creche, if you show me a nativity scene that doesn't have the three little dudes all dressed up, looking nice, bringing the gifts, you would return that nativity scene. When in fact, it's the expansion pack that you should be adding later, right? Now, I am very aware that I'm not the first pastor you have likely heard preach on this story. So I want to dive into these characters just a little bit. I am truly taken with Joseph. And you all have the same look on your face. Where was Joseph in this story? He was there. He's in our imagination. And that's what I want to raise up for you. He's silent. He's in the background. He's there minding the space where Mary is, but we don't see him in the story. Now, I'll take this 1 minute. I don't know if you were shaped by the same kind of Christianity that I was shaped by. There is a branch of our family that is they have a perspective. And I just want to say this. If you're looking for a biblical masculinity, take Joseph in this instance. Quiet in the background and supporting the call on a woman's life. For those who tried to tell me that being masculine was all about puffing up your chest, dominating every part of your life, and trying to conquer things, and that's all this big adventure for you, where do you see that in Joseph? More so than any kind of biblical masculinity, it's very helpful to note Joseph as in this, where he is in this story, for all of us. In the background, supporting, informing, shaping the life of the most important person of all of history, and not looking out for his own voice to be written. No words of his in this passage, but he is clearly part of the picture. How many in your life were in the background who never needed thanks? But man, if you ever got to, it meant something. I'm reminded of how much it takes to put church together. For the people behind cameras and soundboards. For people in rooms counting out the person who put 35 pennies in the offering plate on Christmas. And still having to count it out because it's going to happen. The people who stood up and said, who see the Sunday school teacher a little overwhelmed and decided to jump in and help. Those folks who see trash bags overflowing and take it upon themselves to empty them. These are the Josephs among us. You have my thanks. We need more of you. Of course, one of the stars of the show is Mary herself. She's the host. They wouldn't have gotten close to baby Jesus if she wouldn't let them. And you kind of feel for her. So, I don't know if when you have a baby, the first couple of people who come and see you, the change that can happen, the protection and the need for it. Now, I don't have proof of this, but I got Mary welcoming these guests. And these guests aren't just any guests. They're not, when our first son was born, my mother's best friend beat them to the hospital. My mom's best friend was her best friend when she was 5 or 6. And my aunt, and we always called her Aunt Judy. Aunt Judy, and Aunt Judy, I love my Aunt Judy. She just kept talking for a good 45 minutes. My wife didn't even get her hair done ready after birthing the kid. And she's just talking, and I'm like, how do you politely move her along, right? But to see her there, wonderful. The guests that Mary has at her birth of her first child, these magi came, from the east, from a country she may never have heard of, speaking a language there is no chance she knows, dressed wildly different, in a class system where you wouldn't have seen someone that rich regularly. If you can afford to take a trip that's going to last months, so seeing them coming, they would have had an entourage, something to keep them going. And here are all of these strangers. She doesn't know how long they're going to stay. Giving gifts, which, hey, are nice for me, but these aren't exactly like your first packet of diapers. Those are always an appropriate gift for a newborn. So you see her as a host, at least I like to picture her as a joyously receptive host, but she at least receives them. And I think one of the lessons, I'll give you a little insight. One of the things I actually got to do this week, I met with some of my clergy friends, and we were talking like, what are you doing this Sunday? And I got one friend who, their church just called this Sunday off. Right? They did online only for this Sunday. I'm like, I'm never doing that. Like, as long as I got strength in my feet, I'm coming. And then there was another pastor who's like, I'm going to give the most rousing social justice, burn it all to the ground kind of message. We got to start something new, tear down the patriarchy. And I just said, I don't know if I have it in me for that. But what I will say, to that extent, what I'm stealing from my pastor friend is that with the diversity that these magi show to Mary, how does the church respond when diversity shows up on our steps? There is the rare church that doesn't say, we would love new people. We are a welcoming congregation. And I'm speaking this to the greater church, my friends. But are we asking new people to accept our levels of what is polite, what is our appropriate reaction? I'll give you an example. I was raised that polite interactions with people was eye contact, direct, prolonged, almost to the point of where you feel uncomfortable. But that's polite. When you are speaking to someone, you make eye contact. There are whole cultures where that is abundantly rude. Until it's looking away, that's the proper response. And that's soft. That's to say nothing of what is a proper response to worship. We applauded Max's solo. For me, absolutely. There are corners of Christianity where it is hold. Utter silence. There are corners of Christianity where there's applause for the preacher. A little more appreciation wouldn't hurt you. Now, I don't want to rag on the church too much. You can come back any other Sunday for that. No, to make it more personal for us, here's one thing about how do you approach someone who's different than you when you find it? My father, while this story gets a little embarrassing on his end, he loved this story, so I don't mind telling it to you. I was about 12 years old, and one of the wild experiences of my life was this unheard of family trip. We ended up in Egypt. Cairo. I'm 12 years old, right? And that first night, my parents were all about, let's try everything new and different, let's experience the culture and whatnot. But that first morning, where we are jet lagged to no end from our layover in Luxembourg, and now we're in Cairo, and we are in a very nice hotel. I mean, I have to say that because my dad would probably tell you exactly the dollar amounts that we were spending per minute. Just you be aware. It's one of those hotels where you get room service. This isn't, and it's, guy with the cloth over the arm bringing you the tray, and you get the whole thing. It's the first morning, and we are woken up to Allahu Akbar, only about 6 times as loud. Because the speaker in the city it felt like it was right there. But we all wake up to that, and we're like, oh my gosh. And we're like struggling, and we get out of bed, and my dad's like, okay, we're gonna experience a whole different culture. But first, we're looking at the room service menu, and it says coffee, eggs. Let's have a regular breakfast. The way my dad would say that, a regular breakfast, and then we'll go experience the world. So he calls down for a room service, no answer. And he's like, it's an appropriate time of the day. He calls again. Still, it just rings and rings and rings. Do you know how many dollars per minute I am paying for this place? And he calls again, 3rd time, no answer. He storms down there. Bing! No one was at the desk. Who is manning the desk? And I remember the temperature. My dad could heat that whole hotel of how mad he was because he couldn't get coffee. And all of a sudden, all 3 emerged from the back room. Yes, sir, what can we do for you? I have called 3 times, and you're not even here when I come to get the coffee. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. We were praying. The Allahu Akbar was the call to prayer in a Muslim country. And my dad went from 6'2" to about 3 feet. He just, I am so sorry. No, sir, what can we get for you? No, no, I'm okay. We then go about our day. We come back to our hotel, and there's like a gift basket sitting on the table and a card that says, we are very sorry for your inconvenience. And my dad it's like there's coals on top of my head. When you interact with someone wildly different, are you expecting them to meet you on your terms? Or do you allow them? Or are you going to meet them on theirs? As Christians, our call is to be open to whatever encounter that's different from us. For we fear not what's different from us. We meet difference with generosity and with grace. Finally, the Magi. Usually, whenever this story kind of picks up, some of the trivia for folks, they probably weren't kings. They probably weren't wise men. We don't know how many there were. We generally assume there's 3 because there's 3 gifts. I've seen a lot of commentary on the meaning of the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. That, as your pastor, I can't tell you. When I read the commentaries, you'll see different people's interpretations. They're interpretations. I don't think there's a solid, this is what it meant. What it does give us is a sense that there was provision for the Holy Family. We do know that if they were coming from the east and they were guided by a star, I forgot to tell you this part. So not only these folks, when they encounter Mary, are so much different from them, they said that they found Jesus because they were guided by stars. They saw the stars in the sky based off the meaning and the prophecies and the derived meaning from how the stars moved. According to Levitical code, that would have been a sin. So these people from another religion using a sinful practice still found their way to Jesus. And there are Christians who are worried about rock music. The Magi, probably Zoroastrians, looking up into the sky, see an epiphany. Epiphany is God made manifest. That's the direct translation. But under most meanings that you're getting epiphany from, it's an intense experience of transformation, a sense that God has come so close to you that you can't shake it, that you are utterly changed from the floor up. How many of those experiences have you had in your life? How many? Like, people talk about seeing God in a sunset, and I'm with you. How many sunsets do you remember? Sure. I feel God close to me when I'm around my kids. But from the floor up, change? Probably when they came into the world. And then they act on it. That's one of those aspects of faith that is kind of falling out of favor. So many of us seek religious experience, seek a change, and then what? I've been part of Christian communities where everything came to the decision. Do you believe? Making the argument for Christ, the case for Christ, and getting people to hit that subscribe button. But what's the follow-up? If we can be saved just like the thief on the cross in our final moments, that is amazing and shows a grace that is abundant from our God that is not true for any of the gods worshipped by secular culture. And yet, I'm not, as far as I know. At my best guess, I'm going to make it through this service. At my best guess, I'm going to have more than a day left. At my best guess, I have a whole life to shape and form. How will I do that in response to the love I have come to know? James Joyce, one of the great Irish writers, was raised in the church, famously stepped away from it, but he wrote The Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man. And the lead character has the epiphany when he sees the woman who becomes his wife. And despite his atheism and profound atheism, James Joyce ends up saying, "My holy God," when he sees the woman on the cliff. And in response, he writes, "Surely my job is to be, as an artist, a reporter of epiphanies." And that, for me, becomes a great way to think about my life, the rest of my life. I have drawn close to God. I have had religious experiences. I have felt that Jesus was so close to me at meals with family and friends and church folk. Jesus has been so real, I swear he passed the salt. So I want to tell folks, I want to live differently. I want to act on that experience. I want that experience. The only way that experience feels real is if I'm shaped by it and how I treat other people. That my life might, like a painting or a song, testify to the truth of what I've experienced. So, my friends, with this new year, may that be, I don't believe in resolutions necessarily, only for this one reason. No resolution that you make about the next year, if kept, will make you any more worthy of love. So frequently, that's the source of our resolution desire. Our resolution desire is to make us better, to make us more fulfilled, as if like that would gain us entry. You are loved, graced, and embraced just as you are, whether you change or not. Everything you do to respond to the love that God has for you is another step following the star. It is a response to the love God has for you. That is the proper shape. May it look like Joseph, filling in the background where you can. May you be like Mary, a generous host, willing to take in any person who comes to the door looking for Jesus. And may you be like the Magi, chasing after a star, because you are responding to what you have come to know. Amen.